Tracking your calories and macros, what you eat, is the only way you're going to know if you're actually in a deficit. I know no one likes to track, but tracking, recording what you're eating is the only way you're going to know if you're actually in a deficit. Welcome to Food Noise Begun, episode 9. To track or not to track? That is the question. Please remember to subscribe, like, comment. Also, remember if you have questions about your medical care, please consult with your healthcare providers. A new episode is available every Saturday on YouTube at 9 a.m. and every Sunday on Spotify and Apple at 9 a.m. This week, we're going to talk about tracking what you eat, tracking your tracking the calories that you consume, tracking your macros, what it means to understand if you are truly in a deficit. So I might say this to sound provocative, but the reality is if you are having trouble losing fat, if your weight doesn't seem to be moving, whether you're on a GLP-1 or not, you may find value in tracking your calories because that is the only way you'll truly be able to know if you are in a deficit. And a deficit is actually the only way you can lose fat. It's not controversy, it's just science, right? Thermodynamics, calories in, calories out. I don't say that to be provocative. The one piece that we can actually control is the calories we take in. In fact, that has the greatest influence on if we lose weight or not. Exercise is great. General aerobic activity is just a few hundred calories. Most of the calories we burn is just simply existing, our non-exercise activity, aka NEAT. The piece that we control less is our actual metabolic burn. So what we actually goes out, right? We can control active calories, like the exercise we do, again, a few hundred calories. We can control building muscle so that metabolically we are at rest burning more calories. But the only thing we directly control is what goes into our mouth. I know the goal for many is to simply not track, to have medication that regulates us and makes us feel normal so that we can sustainably live, because many might say you cannot sustainably live and track your food. I have lost 95 pounds, almost 100 pounds in the last year, starting with tracking. A month into my journey is when I added the GLP-1. And the GLP-1 has allowed me the space to be able to look at what I'm tracking, understand if, regardless of how I feel, whether the medication is suppressing, whether we're on the last few days of a medication cycle, and it allows me to know when it's enough to maintain so that I can maintain my calorie deficit. Honestly, tracking is just the simplest way to know if the calories you're taking in are actually matching your supposed deficit. So a couple things. You might be like, how do I know what calories I need if you don't have a nutritionist or don't have a dietitian? Well, you can go online, TDEE calculators. Anyway, you can go online, get a TDEE calculator. I will link at least one in the show notes. You can estimate based on your size, because different sizes will burn different calories, as an estimate, and your general activity level, which again only varies your metabolism by a few hundred calories. What it'll give you is an estimate of what you should be burning. So notice I said estimate. If you really desire to have a cleaner, clearer estimate, so because you can be like Elisa or your dietitian, whoever the professional that you may or may not be working with, or just yourself in ChatGPT, what if I am not burning the expected amount of calories? That is realistic. You may have already been dieting. You could have been yo-yo dieting. Your metabolism could be low. Your hormones could be causing your metabolism to burn less than estimated. And as such, that could impact your calorie deficit because, again, what you're burning, less what you're eating, and the only thing you can directly control is what you're eating. So, there are options. I've mentioned it before. You can get your RMR tested. It's a breathing test. It's relatively accurate. That tells you approximately how much you're burning. Now, if you have something like an Apple Watch, that will measure based on what it's sensing through its sensors, your resting and active energy. So basically what it's estimating what you expend. The guy at the place where I got my RMR measured said it's right within a few hundred calories. A few hundred calories is a big deal, but it's a good estimate and probably more accurate than whatever the estimate of people think they're more active than they actually are. So, yeah, your Apple Watch works. There's the base estimate on the TDEE calculators for activity, and then there is an RMR test to get most precise on what your resting before activity added in burn is. Because then you can be more precise about what your burn is, the calories out, and your calories in, and you can really precisely know what that difference needs to be. Because you need to be sub 5 to 800 calories a day to lose zero point 0.5 to 2 pounds a week. That's just what you need. It's like 3,000 calories or whatever the math is to lose 1 to 2 pounds a week. Every day, a week on cumulative, you need to be in a deficit consistently to lose weight. Again, if you are eating the same amount as someone else who's a different size, whose metabolic rate is different, who maybe has more muscle, they can eat definitely more calories than you because your metabolisms literally burn a different amount, and therefore you must take in a different amount. Someone who works out way more than me is able to say, eat 500 calories more and still lose weight. My husband maintains his weight and eats significantly more than me. We all burn a different amount based on various variables. So the burn is simply less in our control, but what we take in is in our control. So let's talk about what it means to track. I would say tracking isn't difficult. It does not take a lot of time. The normal person eats relatively the same-ish foods week to week. We don't vary that much, whether you eat in and you make your food or you eat out or you eat prepared foods. It's relatively easy to estimate. There's lots of apps that track out there. I'm a MyFitnessPal user. If you use ChatGPT or Gemini, Claude, you could just use your AI to track. You start a thread, you just add pictures, ask it to keep a weekly total, a daily total. You can additionally add additional data, like if you have activity calories on your Apple Watch or your fitness watch, it can then analyze if you're burning versus what you're taking in based on pictures. You don't even need to type anything if that is what you want. It'll say, you can ask it, am I in a deficit? If you take a picture of every single thing you eat. It is that simple. It can take you seconds per day and one question typed in or spoken in because you can speak to these computers now. It's crazy. So it's not difficult, and you don't even need to say, give me the total. Just ask it if you're in a deficit. And it can also look back for several days. Say, am I in a deficit for this week? Say, you ate out one night, and so maybe one day you were in plus and another day you barely ate anything, maybe shot day. Say, am I running a deficit for the last 7 days? It's that simple. Now, I like to be super precise. I put everything in my Fitness Pal. I copy from day to day. On Sundays, I like to go to pizza. On Fridays, we like to go out. I either have a burger or a BLT. Sometimes I have a Caesar salad. Sometimes I have sweet potato fries. Yes, fries. Yes, pizza. But those are kind of constant. I can copy from days before. I can moderate what I eat at other meals to make sure I have space and budget. It does not have to be intensive to know if you're in deficit, but it's just data. So you don't need to obsess. You don't even need to be the one that counts. You can have your assistant, AKA your intern, AKA ChatGPT or your favorite AI. They can count and just tell you if things fit. So what do you do if you're in a stall scenario? This is actually super common, and even if you're tracking, if you are forgetting or unconsciously eating something, that's my problem with snacking. If there's something you're not tracking, that could basically blow up your deficit and, in fact, put you past maintenance into surplus. It is possible. If you accumulate 5 to, say, 1,500 calories, excess calories that you don't understand that you're eating, a tablespoon of olive oil, a couple bites of cheese off your kid's plate, your partner's plate, you can easily accumulate calories, several hundred calories that you are not tracking. So you have to sometimes tracking in and of itself, taking a picture makes you conscious enough so that you're thinking about it. Again, it's less about looking at calories and more simply about being conscious of it and then having something. Again, it's so easy now with AI, something to say, am I in a deficit? And if you can give it your approximate burn, you're out, and you can give it your in, it's going to tell you. And it's probably going to say, this doesn't make sense if everything you're putting in still continues to show a deficit, but your weight isn't changing. It'll probably say, have you checked your measurements? Because your body can recompose, reduce fat, but your weight can stay stable. Let's say you're eating a lot of sodium, you're working out a lot, you have inflammation, you eat higher carbs when you exercise, as you should, because carbohydrates are important. You can retain fluid, inflammation, all sorts of things that can cause your weight, gravity to measure stable, but you actually are in a fat loss phase. A stall should not be forever. If you continue to be in a stall for several weeks, something's not quite right, and it's good to pause, take a look at the data, or start accumulating the data. Let's say you're someone that simply will not track on a daily basis. You're like, Elisa, I'm not going to track 365 days a year. That's crazy. I don't want to do that. I don't want to live that way. That is fair. But if something's not working, that's when you should take a pause. Again, take the easiest route. I'm not saying you need to use MyFitnessPal, that you need to look at every single calorie and Google or search for everything. Take pictures, feed it into ChatGPT, say for a week, and then say, analyze. It will do the hard work. You do need to, but you need something to help you, A, be conscious and account for everything and really look like, are you missing something? Are you missing the olive oil added to or the dressing added to your salad? Are you missing the half and half added to your coffee? It's all of these little 100, 200 calories that can add up. I remember not too long after I started this journey last year, my coach, her Instagram, she posted a reel about one of her clients who had not understood why they weren't losing weight. They were in a stall or maybe even gaining weight. I don't remember the details. But then they went deep dive, kind of went through their diet and figured out there were unlogged snacks, and they added those up and they accumulated to be like something like 1,600 calories in a day. If I ate an additional 1,600 calories, I would be in a surplus. I would be gaining weight. And it wasn't that much food. This was something that each little bit could have been just added to each meal or in between meals, and it would not feel they were all healthy. It was nuts. It was maybe olive oil, maybe olives, cheese, very calorie dense foods that don't make you feel full, even on a GLP. And those calories, that was 1,600 calories. At some point, 1,600 calories was the amount of calories total that I was supposed to take in. So that would have been doubled personally, my caloric intake, if I had 1,600 untracked calories. So again, tracking doesn't make you track things that you don't track. But if you're tracking, you're thinking about them. So hopefully, if you were to say not be a tracker and you pause and you track for a week or even a couple days, all of a sudden you're conscious of that and don't change your behavior, or maybe just write it down. You're like, oh, I had another serving of jerky, and you might not be able to weigh your food. I think weighing your food can really help, especially if you're really trying to chase and figure out what isn't quite adding up. Food scales are cheap and they're small and they're easy to use. When you're at home, you can get travel scales. So when you're on the go, and again, that might not be something you do all the time. Maybe that's just to teach you so you can eyeball the size of things. But the only way to truly know if you want to get super precise is to weigh your food by the gram. I do ounces. It's a little less precise. Grams are super precise. It's the only way to know what's really going in. I understand you don't want to do that when you go out. So you're going to have to estimate, but you're better off overestimating than underestimating. Underestimating is going to what's going to give you extra calories that you think you still are in a deficit, but you might end up being in a surplus. So it's okay to say, I'm going to guess this restaurant stuff, it has extra fat in it. So you choose the highest amount. ChatGPT, if you take pictures, will usually choose the fattier option or the higher calorie estimate if you tell them you're at a restaurant. It just will. It tells you restaurant food is going to be just more calories because there's butter, there's oil, there's things in the food that you wouldn't necessarily put in it at home. So it'll help you. So realistically, when you're in a stall, you're going to be frustrated. You're like, I didn't change anything. I'm eating all healthy food. What's wrong? Why is nothing changing? And I totally get the frustration. It's possible your metabolism has adapted and you're actually burning less calories. So you could be taking in exactly the same if you are like, I'm eating exactly the same, and your metabolism could have adapted. So that is why it's a great idea to track to know if you are truly eating the same or have maybe you've been on a particular dose of GLP for a while, maybe you're snacking a little bit, and because you're not tracking, you're eating a handful of nuts in between meals, or you're eating two handfuls, but you're only tracking one. You only thought you were having one, but you actually went and got two. So again, tracking can just like add that layer of consciousness to it. And then all of a sudden you see the math. So even if you're not typing it in, if you're like, pause, take a picture, it also allows you to say, am I actually hungry? Because you're on a GLP, you should have the space to actually ask yourself if you're hungry, not just eat out of habit. And if you're hungry, eat it, and you have the data to know if you're accounting for everything or not. So again, it's just data. The more data you have, if you have something like a fitness watch, if you're tracking, the more data you have, the better, more accurate it'll be about if you are truly in an energy deficit, because that's all we're talking about. Energy deficit, a GLP helps you be in an energy deficit, helps control the food noise, big for me, helps control your hunger, and helps make sure you feel satiated faster, or at least gives you the space to ask, am I full? Do I really want that? Do I need to eat? You just have the space. The GLP is great in that way, and so it's a great tool. But I think tracking your food is a tool. Should you choose to use it, knowing what is going in really, really can help you if you're experiencing a stall. You don't have to take it as a moral failing if you're in a stall. Everybody does. Our bodies adapt. At some point, I'm gonna be probably recomposing more than I'm losing weight. But if I'm losing fat, I get DEXA scans every quarter. Take a look at last week's episode. I talk all about the DEXA. I'm a huge fan of knowing your composition, but I'm not going to assume I'm losing fat just because I'm working out and I think I'm in a deficit. I'm going to keep getting tests. I'm going to get RMR tests half yearly so I know what my metabolism's actually doing, and I'm going to track, and I'm going to get my body composition measured. I'm going to get all the data so that the ambiguity, the guessing is reduced and we actually know what is happening and we have all the data points. So another reason that tracking matters is over time, again, whether you're on a GLP or not, over time calories can drift, right? Our habits can get a little loose. Our eyeballing, an extra bite. We may not be paying as close of attention to serving sizes or taking seconds. So again, tracking brings in that consciousness and allows the drift to at least be observed and or moderated. Again, sometimes all you need to do for me, tracking simply makes me conscious of what I'm putting in. And it's like a double check to, am I full? Do I have enough budget? I'm in a deficit. It's possible I will be a little bit hungry. If I was in a surplus, I'd be gaining weight. So the tracking really just helps with consistency. And at the end of the day, that's what we all want, especially if we're on a GLP in a weight loss phase. We want to be consistent, and tracking will tell us if we're being consistent. So one of the things, and I think this is what so many people are interested in GLPs for, because they can help you control a lot of this without tracking. They help you know when you're full. They reduce the food noise, that unconscious snacking, that obsession of always thinking about food, what's to eat, are there those M&Ms in the pantry, et cetera, et cetera. So that control that so many people crave, that desire to feel normal, to just have a normal, like normal people, like what Oprah said, aren't thinking about food all the time. Crazy. I know. That whole food noise gambit. But I don't think having the control in the GLP negates tracking. I mean, I know dietitians that don't believe in tracking. That's great because they're like, you can't live in that. And I don't imagine I will track every day for the rest of my life, but I love that I have the skill to, and I know what it adds. If, say, I'm in maintenance in 2 years and the scale starts drifting up, say beyond 5 or 10 pounds, I know how to track. I know how to make it easy. And gosh, by then, the friction to your life and AI will probably be so minimal. I'll probably just have my glasses will probably tell me that I've had enough calories. I mean, it's crazy. I can't quite imagine what it's going to be like in the future, but it's between GLPs and technology, I feel like things are going to be so much simpler for us all to moderate. And perhaps tracking won't look like it does now. So I can only imagine it's going to get easier. So at the end of the day, I don't want to belabor it. I respect people that cannot track, that do not want to, and are like, I can't live like this. I'm simply making the argument that given math, calories in, calories out, it's not a judgment. Your body will burn what it will burn. Some people's bodies will burn more. I'm so jealous of like marathon runners, their body or weightlifters, their bodies just naturally burn more. My coach eats quite a bit and she has to like guard against losing weight sometimes because she has a lot of muscle mass and low body fat. That's the dream, is that I have high muscle mass, low body fat, and I can have a high amount of calories to stay at maintenance, and that losing weight will not be as difficult. Like a cut, say if I want to lower my body fat, will be easier because I'll just naturally burn more calories. Like that's the dream. But do I love having all the tools, knowing how to easily measure how much I am taking in, estimating my activity, having all these tools, the GLP, my Apple Watch, an RMR test, a DEXA scan. and being able to simply track my food because everything's just basically a copy paste or a photo. Yeah, that's it. If you're someone who likes to write things down, you can just jot things down or you can use voice notes. There are so many different ways to figure out whatever the low friction way. And then again, if you don't have to track and you're just losing weight or maintaining your weight, I'm not telling people that are on track to track. I'm simply telling if you are challenged, if you need an additional tool, if you want to truly know if you're in deficit, because it may be a question if you're not losing weight, if you're in a stall, or you haven't figured out how to lose weight, knowing what your calories in is part of it so that you can get to a deficit. It's not an emotional thing, it's just a data point. It's part of the math equation. And so when you stop thinking about it as like a moral failing, right? We need science. We need the GLP-1. Tracking is just another tool. Use it if it makes sense for you. Don't use it if you don't need it. Calories in, calories out is not a judgment, it's just math. Anyway, I hope you have a great week. I hope you do fabulously on your journey. I hope we all get to live in maintenance. Until next week, food noise be gone.